Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Leighanne and I talk about books. So today we have a little bit of a different setup because you know, it's the holiday season. We got some Christmas cheer, but you can't really see most of my Christmas tree, which is fine, it's fun. So today, it's before Christmas, but I did place 2 book outlet orders because I have no self-control. One before Black Friday and then one for Black Friday. So it ended up being 27 books. Again, I have no self-control. But it's been a while since I've done a book haul. I haven't ordered anything crazy off a book outlet in a while. So for this book haul, honestly, there is stuff from like every category that you can imagine. Well, not that you can imagine. Let me rephrase that. So in this book haul, there's a little bit of fantasy, some historical fiction, there's some horror, some contemporary. I'm like looking over at the books. Oh, sorry about that. So sorry. But yeah, so there's a pretty good variety of stuff. I have to unhaul some stuff and make some room because your girl is rapidly running out of space on these shelves. After these 2, and then Christmas, my birthday is at the beginning of January, well, the middle of January. So probably by like the end of January, I probably won't have much going on in the way of hauling books, except for some stuff that's gonna come in off of pre-order that I have already pre-ordered. But I'll have a separate haul for that. I'll have an unhaul, but in another video, I'll also be talking about some of my highly anticipated reads for the first half of 2019. So be on the lookout for that. So let's just go ahead and talk about these books. As always, I'm not really gonna talk about synopses because I am not a very articulate person. If you want to read about it, you can read about it on Goodreads. If I am familiar with it, I'll briefly talk about it, but there's that. First one that I grabbed is M is for Magic. This is by Neil Gaiman. I absolutely love Neil Gaiman's writing. I think that it's a magical. One of the things that I have discovered about myself in the last several months is I dig like magical fairy tale type stuff, especially when it's on the darker side. Middle grade, short story collection. So it should be a fast, fun read. I have read a lot of middle grade in the last couple of weeks. So it's just, you know, something quick that I can get through, kind of like a palate cleanser almost, because it's usually not super heavy. So excited to read this. Next, I picked up Frankenstein and Bad Dad. This is by Ahmed Sadawi. I hope I'm saying that right. I picked this up because I had seen a couple of people talking about it. And then of course, as soon as I placed my order, I see a review from somebody that I trust that said that it didn't live up to their expectations. I'm a little apprehensive going into this, let's say that. From the rubble-strewn streets of US-occupied Baghdad, Hadi, a scavenger and an oddball fixture at a local cafe, collects human body parts and stitches them together to create a corpse. His goal, he claims, is for the government to recognize the parts as people and to give them a proper burial. But when the corpse goes missing, a wave of eerie murder sweeps the city. Hadi soon realizes he's created a monster, one that needs human flesh to survive. First from the guilty and then from anyone in his path. With white-knuckle horror and black humor, Frankenstein in Baghdad captures the surreal reality of contemporary Iraq. So this is kind of a modern take on Frankenstein, but in Baghdad, and it was actually the winner of the International Prize of Arabic Fiction. So again, I'm a little apprehensive, but I'm gonna go into it with an open mind. We're gonna take a sip of this coffee because it's actually hot coffee today. Next, I picked up Children of the Jacaranda Tree. This is by Sahar Delejani. Ugh, I'm so bad at this. The author is Iranian. This story takes place in Iran. It is a contemporary, it is a multi-generational story set from, I think, the early 80s to around like 2011-ish, I'm pretty sure. I have not seen anybody on BookTube talk about this, but I liked the cover, I read the synopsis, thought it sounded interesting, and decided to add it to my cart. So I look forward to reading this. The next book I'm hauling is one that I have read before, but I did not have a physical copy. That is Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is book 1 in the Winter Night trilogy, and the 3rd book comes out in January, I believe. I absolutely loved this book. I ended up checking it out from my library and listening to it on audio, but I wanted to own a physical copy because I really loved it, and I actually want to reread this and Girl in the Tower. getting ready for the release of Winter of the Witch. So when I saw it on Book Outlet, I had to grab it since I have a copy of Girl in the Tower, but I didn't have a copy of this. So The Good People by Hannah Kent. Hannah Kent is the same author who wrote Burial Rites, which is also on my shelf, which I have not read, but I saw this and decided why not. I had seen such wonderful things about Burial Rites. I have not seen anything about this one, and I'm honestly not 100% sure what it's about. This was a buy because of the author's name, and it was cheap. Seems to be a contemporary 19th century Ireland, so just kidding, like more historical fiction based on true events. So, okay, all right. So this seems to be similar to her writing style of Burial Rites, because Burial Rites, I believe, is a fictionalized version of the woman who was last executed in Iceland, Greenland, somewhere there. So this should be interesting. The next three I'm gonna haul together, and they are 3 books by Angela Carter. The first one is The Bloody Chamber and Other Short Stories. I listened to this on audio for the Books in the Freezer readathon, and I really loved her writing style. Now, there were a couple things that I didn't care for about it. It is a bit antiquated in certain ideologies, especially in terms of racism towards the Indian people. So that's a thing, but I really enjoyed these kind of redone, really dark fairy tales. Again, I already mentioned that's my shit. So I saw this on Book Outlet and wanted to go ahead and grab this while it was there because I see myself rereading these. I did really enjoy them. And in addition to that one, I also picked up The Magic Toy Shop. So this one is a full-length novel, The Magic Toy Shop. One night, Melanie walks through the garden in her mother's wedding dress. The next morning, her world is shattered. Forced to leave the comfortable home of her childhood, she's sent to London to live with relatives she's never met. Aunt Margaret, beautiful and speechless, and her brother Francie, whose graceful music belies his clumsy nature, and the volatile Finn, who kisses Melanie in the ruins, in the ruins of the pleasure gardens. Okay, well, this should be interesting. Probably like dark fantasy is my assumption, so. And then I also picked up Nights at the Circus, which is blah, 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 about a woman who's part woman, part swan. That's all I really know. So again, probably like dark fantasy. Next up, we have a thriller that's Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Penborough. I keep seeing this on people's like hauls and like wrap-ups and stuff, and I'm seeing good things about it. Y'all know I love a good thriller, so it was on Book Outlet and it was cheap, so I figured I'd see what the fuss is about with this one. Next is a horror short story collection by Robert Cargill, C. Robert Cargill. We Are Where the Nightmares Go and Other Stories. I mostly bought this because I liked the cover, but I don't know anything about this author actually, and I don't know anything about the stories. I didn't look at the reviews before I bought it, so hopefully it's gonna be good. Next is The Cellar by Minette Walters, and first of all, this is a tiny ass paperback, which I wasn't expecting because I usually don't get tiny ass paperbacks, and honestly I hate this size paperback. I might end up unhauling this after I read it, but from what I gather, this is about a young girl who is basically like a slave for this family, and then suddenly she's not anymore, and ends up doing terrible things to their family or something. I don't know. Again, I don't really know anything about this. I got it because it was in the horror section and it was cheap. And the reviews aren't bad. Next up, we have another weirdly sized paperback, and that is Birdman by Mo Hader. This is apparently a series, and it's like a thriller series. The first line of the synopsis on the back: 5 young women have been ritualistically murdered and dumped near the Millennium Dome in Southeast London. You got me. I'm good. It's on my TBR. Again, this isn't anything that I've seen anywhere, so hopefully it's not trash. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I have multiple copies of Alice in Wonderland because I just really like some of the illustrated editions. I don't love Alice in Wonderland like with my whole being, but I own multiple copies. I'm probably gonna get rid of some of them and like gift them to friends with kids or something. But anyway, so I picked up Alice by Christina Henry, which is supposed to be a fucked up, twisted version of Alice in Wonderland, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. From the reviews that I read of this, because I went on Goodreads to see if it was even worth picking up, apparently it's really gruesome. So gruesome fairy tales, I'm here for it. Excited to pick it up. This is a book that has been on my radar for quite some time. White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi, and I have read one short story collection from Helen Oyeyemi, but I've been dying to get my hands on this because I see such amazing things about it. This is kind of a horror slash thriller-ish dark something. I don't really know what it's about, if I'm being completely honest, which I'm not mad about because I like going into things blind. I just know that people talk about how great this book is, so definitely excited to read it. Within These Walls by Anya Alborn, and I have only read one book by Anya Alborn. I have a collection of short stories or novellas on my shelves, but I saw this and had to snatch it up because the book that I read by her was absolutely amazing. Horror writer, female horror author, which is even better. But I really liked the book that I read, and I periodically, she's one of those authors where I periodically go on Book Outlet and search and see if there's anything that I can pick up for cheap, because I just really fell in love with her writing style and her storytelling. So yes, I am really looking forward to this one. The Terror by Dan Simmons. I haven't read anything by Dan Simmons yet. I have one other book by him, but it's actually the second in like the, you know, like Summer of Night, and I think it's like the Seasons of Horror or something like that. I'm probably way wrong about that. But anyway, I had the second book. I need to get the first. But I saw this and decided to pick it up. Apparently, this is a horror historical fiction, something along those lines. Part of the 1845 Franklin expedition, the first steam-powered vessels ever to search for the legendary Northwest Passage, are entering a second summer in the Arctic Circle without a thaw, stranded in a nightmarish landscape of encroaching ice and darkness. There is something out there in the frigid darkness, an unseen predator stalking your ship, a monstrous terror clawing to get in. I've seen good things about this. This had been on my radar. I kept seeing it on Book Outlet and just didn't pick it up because I didn't know anything about it. And then of course, as soon as I like really looked into it, I started seeing it everywhere. It comes highly rated to me, so there's that. I See You by Claire McIntosh. This will be the second book that I have read by her. This is another domestic thriller. Zoe Walker glances through her local paper and sees her own face staring back at her in a classified ad. With the grainy photo is a phone number and a listing for a website called findtheone.com. In the following day, she sees other women in the same ad, a different one every day, and nearly all of them show up in the newspapers as victims of increasingly violent crimes, including murder. So, thriller, we've talked about it. I like thrillers, and I really enjoyed the first book that I read by Claire McIntosh, which was I Let You Go. I really, really loved that one. So I'm hoping to also have good luck with this too. My hand hurts from holding these books already, y'all. I have carpal tunnel in my hands, and like, it's not good. Mr. Fox, also by Helen Oyeyemi, and I don't know anything about this. Fairy tale romances end with a wedding. The fairy tales that don't get more complicated. Writer Mr. Fox can't stop himself from killing off the heroines of his novels, and neither can his wife Daphne. It's not until Mary, his muse, comes to life and transforms him from author into subject that his story begins to unfold differently. Meanwhile, Daphne becomes convinced that her husband is having an affair and finds her way into Mary and Mr. Fox's game. And so Mr. Fox is offered a choice. Will it be a life with the girl of his dreams, or a life with an all-too-real woman who delights him more than he cares to admit? So I know that this 100 Notable Books for 2011, it was included on that list. So we'll see. Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. I don't know anything about this. Not a thing at all, but I saw Margaret Atwood and decided to go ahead and just pick it up. I have one other short story collection from her on my shelves. The only other thing that I've ever read from her is Handmaid's Tale. Really loved that. I think that they actually made this into a series. Somebody made it into a series. I'm pretty sure. Murderers of Her Employer. Grace is Innocent. Others Think Her Evil or Insane. Okay, well that sounds interesting. So I enjoy Atwood's writing style. So although I will say this, I hear that she's writing a sequel for Handmaid's Tale. And I am not sure how I feel about that. And the reason for that is you had all this time to write a sequel, and I feel like it might be a cash grab, seeing as, you know, it really did become relevant. And I really enjoyed Handmaid's Tale. There are some problems that I have with it, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it. but I'm afraid that this is gonna be a cash grab. I'm saying it. Just being honest. I could be completely wrong, but I'm throwing it out there. Okay. Next, I grabbed this super giant book, B.C. Andrews, Flowers in the Attic and Petals on the Wind. I feel like I've read Flowers in the Attic. I really do. But I can't remember if I have it. If I did, it was a long time ago. And I remembered that this book existed whenever I read Paperbacks from Hell. So I saw the first 2 books in the series. It was a little like bent, but I did not realize that this was gonna be as thick as it was. But the good thing is the print isn't super tiny. So at least there's that. Gods of Howl Mountain, this is by Taylor Brown. I have another book by him up here, The River of Kings. I don't know what this is about. I remember reading the synopsis and being interested in it though. Whiskey Runners. Takes place in the high country of 1950s North Carolina, which is close to where I live. Historical fiction involving bootlegging. Could be interesting. I don't know anything about this author's writing style because again, I have a book up there by him. I learned the hard way whenever I said Riley Sager was a she and it's really a he, that I can't assume an author's gender based on the name, which I shouldn't be assuming anybody's gender anyway, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, Gods of Howl Mountain, bootlegging, North Carolina, historical fiction. I can dig it. The House of Small Shadows by Adam Neville. I feel like Adam Neville also wrote The Ritual. I could be wrong about that, but I've been dying to get my hands on The Ritual. It was blurbed by Scott Smith, who wrote The Ruins, and I really loved The Ruins. So, but we all know that just because it's blurbed by a well-known author doesn't mean anything, because Stephen King has blurbed some really bad books. Some really bad ones. I don't know what this is about. It was in the horror section and I picked it up because I don't know. The cover's really creepy with the doll parts. It's a horror, that's all you need to know. The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. I think that this was actually supposed to be a series or something. There is no synopsis for this anywhere. But this is another book that keeps popping up on like horror lists and stuff. Even though I don't think that it's like expressly horror, but it has like some horror elements to it. So I'm not 100% sure, but I keep seeing good things about it. So I figured, let's go ahead and pick it up. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This is another book that I'm hauling that I have actually read. Another book that I checked out from my library that I loved. This made it on the list for one of my best books of the year. That list is incoming, so be on the lookout for that. Probably very beginning of January. But I loved this book so much. Historical fiction, World War II. I can't say enough good things about this book. Like, I listened to it on audio because I checked it out from my library, and like the last 30 minutes of listening to it, I just sat on my couch and cried. That, like, ugly cried. I cannot remember. You know the last book that made me ugly cry like this one did? A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, if that tells you anything at all. I'm generally not a crier. I'll feel emotions about certain things, but I generally don't like ugly cry. No, this fucked me all the way up. So I wanted to own a copy, and here we are. The Shining Girls by Lauren Bukes. I keep seeing people talking about this author and this book in particular. I've seen mixed things about it, but it's supposed to be a thriller. I like thrillers. It's about murderers. Figured why not pick it up. In conjunction to that, I picked up Broken Monsters by the same author. Same thing, not a series that I can tell, but thriller. So that's the thing. And the very last book that I'm gonna haul today, The Silent Girls by Eric Rickstand. I didn't know that this is the second book in a series because I'm the worst. Apparently it's kind of like True Detective, but not. Serial killer, thriller, detective turned private investigator. It's about all I know about it. But apparently I have to pick up the first book first. So that's a thing. So those are all of the books that I hauled this time for my Black Friday book outlet haul. Have you read any of these books? If you had, comment down below. Let me know what you thought of them. What should I push higher up on the TBR? What should I maybe reconsider? Remember to keep it spoiler free, as I have read none of these books. except for 2. As always, if you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you click thumbs up or hit subscribe if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.